What it is.
What's up, dude?
How you been?
I've been pretty good, pretty decent.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
how about
good.
yourself?
Yeah, I've been doing all right. I had a kind of life change. Recently had something happen with this cool new job I had to where it's not quite as it's not quite as cool or as new or my job anymore. So life comes at you and you got to deal with the punches and roll with it. And luckily, I've got something figured out and always have a backup plan. So we roll with it. But other than
What?
that, things are good, man.
So, still a sponsor of ours, or what?
I mean, I figured I'd still give them a shout out. Basically, I went from I'm still associated with them in a way.
Yeah, they're not
So
bad
yeah,
guys. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they're still a good company. I just just it's a different situation, and I'm just not going to go into it too much on here. Those who know, and those who don't need to know. So
yeah. Respect our
um,
privacy.
exactly. So yeah, but other than that, man, things are going good.
Oh,
I
dude.
I think it's always awesome whenever I have the opportunity. Oh, you know what? Actually, before I go any further, housekeeping stuff. For those listening, Mike and I finally, I don't know why we never did this before, but we finally got around to making the podcast's individual um, Instagram page. So if you want to follow that on there, we're gonna I'll be posting all the stuff on my normal social media as usual, but I'm gonna try to start shifting all of the
That's where you
podcast.
send. That's where you send me all your BS and your forward mail and your nudes and stuff.
Yeah,
Send it straight there.
yeah. Instead of trying to track down me or Mike, yeah, send it both to us. We're gonna try to upload stuff, podcast related. Maybe get into a few more things with the podcast type updates.
Gun stuff
Um,
and shit.
yeah, reels, loadouts, gun stuff. It's a good way to get a hold of us if you want to get a hold of us for the podcast. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's going to be
Yeah,
uh,
less life stuff, less like individual person stuff, and more of like the broad like spectrum of the podcast kind of deal.
exactly like if we get, I'm thinking more like we've been me and Mike have been talking about getting better mics and some better setups. It's just a matter of getting the money together to get the right stuff and make sure we can provide for you guys a better quality of experience for you, and even potentially hopefully video in the future. Video is one thing we've experimented a few times in the past and we've hit some snags, which is why we haven't uploaded them yet.
Yeah.
But
And or if you have any questions and stuff you want to ask the podcast itself, or let's say you wanted to ask me, but you only follow Austin, or if you want to ask Austin, you only follow me, kind of deal. Just send it to the podcast one, and both of us will see it that way.
absolutely. And also, like, I make it a point of mine to answer everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care if you have one follower, zero followers, you're brand new. I don't care. Message me, and I will try to find the time to make. I will try to make the time to talk to you guys. That's the whole point for me. Is like I want to make those connections. I want to get out and talk to people. This whole thing's about helping people out, and
That's one of the big reasons we started this podcast. Even it was just community outreach.
yeah, exactly. It was the idea that like, hey, we want to get out there and talk to people, And I've had a bunch of people on my personal one and recently on on the podcast page reach out, and I've had great conversations. And I always find it interesting too when people are like, "Oh, hey man, thanks for taking the time to actually talk to me." And it's funny because like for me, I always go out and with my way and take that time, but I totally understand because like going out and messaging some other people who are a little bit higher status. Granted, I'm sure they probably get tons of messages a day, but you don't really get that connection. And if you do, you usually get someone's like social media team. You're
Yeah.
talking to Jerry behind the counter. You're not talking to whoever you're trying to get a hold of. So I think that is one thing that I mean, not to brag, but I think that's one thing that we excel at and that makes us kind of cool is that you get to actually talk to us and we will take that time. But yeah, we're going to be posting, probably shorter clips here and there from the show, home updates. I mean, like not home updates, but like show updates, maybe like personal loadouts, questions, stuff
Yeah.
that might be relevant to some of the things we've talked about, that kind of thing. And you can kind of track along with us as we go on there. So I'll put the link in the description. It's mid tier thoughts. There's a couple underscores in there, but I'll throw it in the description of this episode, and it's going to be posted on my social media as well. So make sure you follow. Um, Speaking of people reaching out, though, I do want to do a quick shout out, and I'm going to make sure that I put your Instagram handle in the bottom, so that way we recently got so that way people can. Sorry, I'm speaking on retard here. So yeah, so I'm gonna put the Instagram handle in the bottom, but for those who are listening, I had a follower reach out from Germany. Super cool dude, super awesome guy I've been talking to. We had a great conversation about gun culture and where he's from and gun culture here and some of the differences and things. Anyway, he reached out, was wondering for a list of people to kind of get him an idea of like the Minuteman mindset and how to train and what in ways to think of like preparedness and tactics training. Communication is a big one. So I sent him a personal list. I'm going to go ahead and put his Instagram handle in the bottom. The bottom of this post. If you guys would do me a huge favor for those who listen, go in there, tag him, look him up, and he's going to be getting a surgery in the near future, and he's going to have some downtime. And I think it would be awesome if we could again kind of build that community that we've talked about building here, and have a bunch of people go out and hit him up and be like, "Hey, man, hope you're doing well. Get better. Well, what do you want to know? What do you want to learn? I'm here for you." Let's like I want to get this to the point where this guy's like, holy crap, I have so many people messaging me. This is awesome.
Make him feel appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, like I know if someone did that for me, I'd feel pretty stoked. So, I don't know how comfortable you are with me throwing all your info out here outside of your Instagram thing, which is already public, so I won't say names. But yeah, man, it was, you know who you are when you listen to this episode, and it was awesome having a good conversation with you. But yeah, I think that if we could do that as a group, as the people that listen here, I think that would be pretty rad.
Yeah. It's especially good for like a group like us. So like a group that is like us, a bunch of like-minded guys and stuff like that all want to just make sure we're prepared and make sure that we are educated. That is the big, huge thing, is that you need to be educated on what is going around you, not just in your immediate area or in your state, but like also what's going on in your country, what's going on in other countries. So like the fact that we're so open and we can talk to so many people and figure out what's actually happening without any media coverage, like no watered down or wash or this side or that side, Republican side, Democrat side, it doesn't matter. Like each broadcasting like company skew the stories to fit their what's it called, agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so awesome to have someone in the country, like in Germany, and that can actually give you somewhat untainted perspective on what's going on in the world, what's going on over there.
Well, it's really interesting too, because I've had conversations recently with one individual from Poland and one individual from Germany within the last week or two, and having conversations back and forth. What's been kind of eye opening for me is understanding what the um, what the perspective is on the American gun culture or on America as a whole, and what information people from the outside of the United States are receiving. Like I know most of us in the US, we all know that the media is going to go on here, and the AR-15 might as well be like a 155 howitzer, and it's just this automatic death murder machine that can kill everybody, and you can just pick one up in a grocery store vending machine.
Yeah.
Right. The media puts all that crap out, and we all know it's BS, but we also live here and we know the reality. Um, it's interesting to when you talk to people who are not from the US, and there's definitely an understanding that like obviously certain things are blown out of proportion, but certain things that are like gun myths that go around, like the gun show loophole or whatever, right? Certain things like some people outside of the US, unless they spend their time really diving into American law, and then even further by state when it comes to gun rights, the only information they have is what they're hearing out there. And
Yeah.
so it is interesting to kind of see what the perspective is on that, and how politics and political ideologies and cultural differences float around that, to where everyone has an entirely different perspective that we might not even recognize and know. We like I guarantee you, if you took an American and you talk to some of the people I've talked to, and you're like, hey, on the pro gun to anti gun scale, one side being I want to nuke I should have one, blah blah blah. The other side being like, no one should have anything. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed sometimes to put them traditionally in where you might think they would go. Um, just because like the culture is different, you know,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
understanding like the reasonings that different people have or different ideologies that people have. I think it's interesting too. I think it's a good idea though to get to be informed of how other countries work and how other countries think, especially how they think of us and why, and not just like the stereotype stuff, but like there's always a stereotype that everyone thinks of Americans as being like fat trailer trash,
Yeah, they
which
actually think we all have the southern accent, which is really funny.
exactly right. Like how much of that is perpetuated by movies and media, things like that.
Hmm.
Um, the thing that immediately comes to my mind is my kid loves the movie Flushed Away, which is like a British cartoon, and it's about mice, and there's these American
I
mice
yeah.
that show up,
I
and
love Flushed Away. It's such a good
okay,
movie.
okay, yeah. So there's these American ones there, and they're overweight. I heart Texas stuff everywhere,
They just
thick
walk around
Southern
like, "What the hell's going on?"
yeah, like they're playing soccer, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
they keep calling it football, and they're like, pick up the ball, somebody throw the ball. These Brits don't know how to play football,
I
and,
love that one, dude.
yeah. And so it's just funny to me. Like, I think it's really interesting to go out there, like having gone around the world a little bit myself. I do think it's interesting to kind of learn about those other cultures and see the differences between there. Like one of the things I find interesting really outside of like the United States, Canada, and maybe parts. Well, I guess I would say it's a new world, old world kind of thing, right? Is that a majority of the world, like when you look at the United States, a lot of us think like, hey, being out in the middle of nowhere, having some land to myself, kind of like the gentleman farmer type of thing, is the ideal life for a lot of people, right? Going
Yeah.
out and having that kind of idea, that rural life, or kind of like the American cowboy or the country life, right? That's honored and kind of dignified, especially the United States and Canada, parts of Mexico. I'm not sure outside of that how much that really holds true, but I know that at least from my experiences with a lot of people in Europe and a lot of people in the Middle East and a few other parts of the world, that that's kind of looked down upon. There, it's like if you want to be somebody, you have to be cosmopolitan. You have to be in the cities. You have to be where that's at. You got to be where the money's at. You got to be where the business is. You got to be in the city. And that if you're in the country, well, you're a peasant. And the difference there, I think, it holds over a lot. And so even just knowing differences like that, I think is important for the average person to kind of understand how to deal with people and how to understand where people are coming from, uh, to figure out where they're at and where you're at without making too many assumptions to try to get some kind of middle ground.
Yeah. Hmm. I like that. I like that whole vision you got there. But
Yeah, there's
yeah.
my philosophical points with your boy right there.
Little philosophy with your boy.
So that's a little bit of that puff puff pass. So
um anyway, dude, that is awesome. I love hearing it. If you guys are from other countries listening in, I'm still blown away that you know who we are, but hit us up, let us know everything. We want to hear everything, man.
yeah, absolutely. Like definitely contact us. Like don't feel shy about it at all. I actually as long as we can schedule it, I'm trying to get a couple of people on the show that are from outside of the States to kind of give a different perspective, on the ideas of kind of a Minuteman lifestyle, on how easy or hard that may be. I know, from some of the conversations with some of these people I've had, that sometimes that kind of like tactical gun owner culture just doesn't exist, or it's extremely frowned upon,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and,
And it's
and
not a big thing. Yeah.
yeah, or even sometimes like airsoft, sometimes that might be your, as much in the States as we like to kind of make fun of it. And I know like we've talked a little bit before about like the importance sometimes of training value you can get out of some of these events if they're kind of taken semi seriously.
Mhm.
Um, that might literally be your only outlet outside of the U.S.
The only
Uh,
form of training.
yeah, so like as much as we dog on it in the United States, that's because we're lucky enough to be able to go out with the boys, go climb a mountain and dump lead into a tree, and pretend we're shooting the bad guys and it's Red Dawn.
Which it's also
Without
crazy because what's Lucas Bakken's already proved, like with that Japanese kid that does it
Yeah.
nonstop. He was able to handle it. He said a lot of it was like recoil management, trying to figure out that and whatnot. But he had all the basics.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deep into it because I do have a guest in mind that's going to talk a little bit more about this, but I'll just throw this one little snag out is some of these countries where outside of the US where you are allowed to have firearms, it can be an extremely painful process to get to that point and an extremely time and money consuming thing. So part of it is like I know some of the people they are getting airsoft replicas as close as possible to the weapons they intend to buy, putting the actual name brand accessories on it, the same way they're going to outfit their rifle. And they are going out and they are getting reps in. They are training with kit. They're training with comms. They're doing with team tactics. They are doing everything they can to mimic having that weapon. So when the time comes to get that weapon, they've got a big part of the training down.
Yeah. Now, if you notice what we said there was when they get the weapon. So it's not a full blown replacement of like, hey, if you know how to shoot a air blow like Glock, you can shoot a real one. Because yes, there still is some like things that you can only get from repping a real gun. But yes.
Hey, speaking of T-Rex arms, so what are your thoughts on the idea of M81 being officially blessed by him as the based camouflage pattern?
Oh, it's all bullshit. Camouflage. I don't care. Like I don't give shit enough to actually rep M81 or like care who endorses it or anything like that. Then at the end of the day, camouflage is camouflage, homie.
Yeah.
Use
No,
whatever blends in your area.
I think it's funny. I made a post the other day, where because like belt kit has kind of come back around, like the belt with suspenders. The carry handles have come back around. The M81's coming back around. So I had a picture of my belt kit with my M81 with my Colt. And I was like, with the Colt carry handle. And I was like, I liked it before it was cool. I just want to put that out there.
That's why all that shit, I never take it to heart. Like all the people are like,
Oh,
"Oh
yeah.
no, no, you have to do it. It's in right now. It's what it is right now. You have to do it. It's only the coolest of the cool do it." I'm like, watch, give it a couple years. I hope never, ever, ever. Please God, never. Black Cammy comes back in.
No. Waiting for is someone to find a legitimate reason. I'm waiting for the defense. It's coming. Some and why the blue navy camouflage makes sense. It's going to happen.
Oh, first
It's
of all,
going to.
I
I
want.
guarantee you.
I don't care who you are, dude. That shit was slick,
Dude. The only thing you blend in is the one thing you don't want to blend in with.
dude.
This
That's you.
why?
You personally know that's a big load of crock of shit. If you're wearing that uniform, you're not even at sea.
Dude, my biggest thing was like I used to always like joke around with the other branches and tell them like, yeah, man, we'd all just get out on the side of the ship and kind of wiggle around, and it's camouflage for the ship. They think we're a wave.
Like that's why those videos of the people like always dogging on it and shit like that. I kind of laugh at them because I'm like, dude, we don't even wear that at sea. Like
Yeah,
it's not a thing.
I'm just waiting for someone like Mike Glover or something to come along and be like, all right, so you guys for night operations, as an operator,
Luke.
you got to understand this blue camouflage, so it blends in with the night sky. Right? Like the best time to attack is about dusk or dawn. The sky, what's that color? Kind of a dark blue, right? So we're kind of naturally blending in here with these colors. See, look, I'm already doing it. I could do this and make it the
You're
next
pulling it
trend.
off, bro. You're pulling it off.
I'm telling you, that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do is we're gonna start making plate carriers and everything in that color. And then the thing is confidence. That's all you got to do is
When
confidence.
I actually have seen like plate carriers and shit like that in that blue camouflage, dude. It's
Oh,
it's the most cursed image I've ever seen in my life.
oh man. No. See, that's like my thing is like, okay, so even like the green digital pattern that the Navy uses, the NW Type 3 or AOR2, depending on who you are. Um, I don't mind it as a camouflage pattern for like a set of camis. I hate seeing gear in that color. I don't know what it is. To me, it's just cringe. I know you can like it all you want. I'm not saying you're a retard if you do. For me, I think
Cringe.
part of it is just like the people I knew when I was in that had that gear. They were always like the wannabe SEAL guys, and
Hmm.
it just triggers that in my brain.
It is very cringe, but at the same time, the only time it would really help you is if we're fighting in a swamp.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, up in like the North Idaho area, going out and trying out a few different patterns. There's some dudes that basically I've seen that basically they just run just Ranger green, just like a Ranger green BDU top and
Bro,
Ranger green
you
pants,
better
and
watch
it's
your fucking mouth. That's
and
all I wear. That's all of my kit. My
yeah, oh
entirety of
no,
all my
I'm
kit.
saying it's a positive. Like I'm
Oh, okay.
saying, like it's it's just as effective um as other colors. I mean, like I've had dudes out here in M81. I've had me and my AOR2. I've seen guys in just Ranger Green, and so these woods are thick, man. And you get about 40 yards out and crouch down, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're all like that's the thing, man. Like real recently, one of the things we did is we went up into the mountains, kind of into an undisclosed, mountainous area, took some targets and stuff, and went up. And one of the things we did is we kind of set up like a shoot and move course,
Hmm.
but we put the targets like halfway behind a bush, and halfway behind a tree. And what we did is every time we'd go through, we would have someone else go out and move the targets. So you had to actively look for them. Like you knew they were in this area, but you didn't know exactly where, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would tell you right now, these were just the IPSC cardboard cutouts, right?
Hmm. Brown
And we
cutout.
were,
Yeah.
yeah, like this is the brown human torso size cutouts. And we weren't scoring or anything. It was just like more or less kind of just a training to see like a target identification under stress because we were timing you. And it was a total of 9 targets, 2 shots per target. And I tell you, some of those guys, man, they were hard to find.
Yeah.
And you think that's just a not natural color brown in a wooded area, like a heavily wooded area. And the furthest one I think was maybe 35 yards. And I'm like, dude, if this was a person who was like had any type of camouflage on or natural brush into their kit, wanted to kill me and was shooting back, I'd be dead.
Yeah. You would not see
Like,
him.
no, I mean, like that's my thing. Is like depending on where you're at, and I mean, like it doesn't take a whole lot in some areas, and I think sometimes people freak out a little too much, like, oh, well, so one guy said Flecktarn is better in my area, and another guy said M81, and some other guy said I have to have this Atex pattern, and I don't, and then everyone freaks out and is like, if you're not wearing multicam, you're gonna die or something, and it's like, dude, if you put one dude out there in a set of Realtree, he'd kill every one of us.
Yeah. So my big thing on a lot of the color patterns and a lot of camo is just like where whatever is gonna be good for you in your area. Where like obviously we're in Washington, a lot of green would be fine. Ranger green is fine. Running around in like that African red and like I forgot what country that was. What country was you're good with horrible camo?
Like the South African one where it's like that dark red with kind of it's almost like a reverse chocolate chip camo.
Yeah, yeah. Like running around in that
Yeah,
would not help you at all.
yeah,
So like it's just kind of wear whatever you want. What you really need to watch for is what pops up in IR. What pops
yeah,
up in night vision. Cause like black camo, that's why it's horrible too, is you shine. You
yeah.
shine under IR, under night vision, or under anything.
That's one thing I've kind of been experimenting with a little bit with some of the guys up here. So I'm in the process. It's down the road of getting nods. It will happen eventually. Some of the guys around here that I've been shooting with do have them. And so one of the things we did when we were up there in the mountains, it got kind of dark, and guys throw their nods on, and we all kind of went out a little bit of a distance, and we're like, hey, what does this look like under nods? And so wearing M81, for example, the tans and the browns and the green and the kind of green, fairly they did their job well, but all the black spots were very obvious. Anyone that had a black piece of kit or a black rifle, very obvious that that's what it was. So again, paint your rifles, and going under IR or under nods. It was interesting to kind of see compared to plain clothes, compared to camo patterns, what stuck out where.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my big thing about camo nowadays. Is that's the only thing you should worry about. Is just what you can see under night vision. That's where the fighting's gonna happen now. Like any time in modern war right now, it's happening at night.
Yeah, it's been interesting to, I think, to kind of learn from the Ukraine example. I've been watching a couple YouTube videos on a guy's channel. His name's Lindy Beige, and he's a British war historian, and he's been having some people. He had some Canadians and he had some Englishmen who were people who volunteered to go to Ukraine. He had them come back and kind of talk on his show a little bit, and kind of talked about like the reality of like, okay, what are things that you're bringing? What are things that you're using? What are things that you're needing? And they talked about, for example, they didn't have enough night vision to go around for everybody. So what they would do is, all these people were showing up with um, all these types of like laser systems and like PECs and stuff, but like no night vision, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, why? Like why do they're like, oh, we just figured we'd issue them. Like, right, no, not going to happen. But one of the things that he was talking about too was like, again, kind of going back into this was, even if, let's say, you have all that kit, getting that training reps into it and coming up with different types of solutions for noise and light discipline were huge, because he was saying almost on a regular basis, you basically, what they would do is give the night vision to the guy on watch at night, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be sitting there in your little fighting position, and he's trolling along, looking through the night vision, and then you just notice that your buddy's got his IR laser on, and it's just pointing up straight at the sky. And you're like, hey, retard, turn your laser off. Now the whole Russian army knows we're here,
Yeah.
And that was happening all the time, because one, it's like it's IR, and these guys didn't have nods. Not everyone did. So some of them, and even the ones that did, they'd be sleeping or something like that, and get bumped on or turned on by accident. So it goes back to like that noise and light discipline type of thing. But like things like this were happening all the time, where it's like, basically, one of the points that he made too was like, the more things that like, if you're going to slap things onto your rifle, understand the things you're slapping on and how they work. Don't just slap it on because you want to.
Yeah, know what it looks like, know how to use it.
Yeah, he's like, basically, like, have an idea of understanding. Like, don't be like, I'm going to take this thing into combat that I've never spent time operating with, because something like that, like, he was basically made the point, like, yes, it could be potentially a great asset. However, if you're unfamiliar with it, you haven't trained with it, and you don't know what you're doing, you're bumping it on accident all the time, and you're giving away your position to everybody else with nods, you screw us more than you help us.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of, if you're gonna do so, and that goes with anything. If you're gonna do anything with kit, like, don't let the first time that you use something be the time that you need it to save your life.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of people I know that conceal carry never once have dry fired.
I've never understood the ideology of spending the time and money and resources mentally to pick out a gun, spend the money on it, do the background check, do whatever you got to do, get home, and then never use it.
Yep, never touched it again. It goes right in the gun safe. Never will be touched again.
Dude, like, when I buy a new gun, I'm basically autistic for the next 3 weeks. Like, I have a sole fixation on that one thing, and then finally, once that sensation dies, I watch a movie or something, and I'm like, I have that gun, and then that thing becomes my next thing. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because
honestly, I need to get back into dry firing more religiously, like I was doing. I used to do it all the time, and then I got kind of bored with it. And now that even TRX Arms, the website, sells all that dry fire equipment and shit. I really want to buy it all. So if we ever hit it off like huge on this podcasting, that's the first I'm gonna go buy. I'm just gonna go buy like $400 worth of dry fire shit.
And that's the nice thing about dry fire though, is like even if you don't have any of that dry fire stuff, like literally all you need to do is have an empty gun.
Yeah, you can do. I'm just being bougie.
Exactly. Like there's some dope stuff out there. I will say for those who are kind of looking for cool stuff to use, and we're not sponsored by them, although if you're listening, I will repeat this long enough that you should sponsor me. Mantis X is a really good system.
That's the one that TRX Arms is selling now.
Yeah. So basically, it's just a little clip-on deal that you can slide onto your mag or your rail or wherever you want to mount it on your pistol. It's all Bluetoothed to a device, so you can basically just dry fire at a wall, and it will show you on a bullseye on your iPad or your cell phone or whatever on this app, like if you were aiming at this bullseye, like where you would have hit and why, and it breaks down like the break of the trigger and your hand movements and did you pull before or after your breath, flinching. Like it's crazy how much you can tell off of that data. And there's multiple different modes you can use. It's a really cool system. I know we had it at the gun shop that we would always show off, and it's
really cool. You can use it while live firing.
Yeah, exactly. You can translate your dry fire stuff over to your live fire too, and you can compare. So you could do stuff because it'll rate your trigger pull on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being perfect, right? So if you get down your dry fire stuff and you're like, dude, I know how to game it and I can get a 98 every time, because you're never going to get 100, right? But it's like I can get a 98 every time. I'm the best. And then you go out and you dry fire. I mean, you go from dry firing to shooting for real. You can see like, did that transfer over, or like, oh man, I really need to work on like recoil mitigation or something that I'm not getting in that dry fire session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I love about them, dude. And they make them for the rifle and for the pistol. I want to buy a different one for the pistol because they actually make an air charging thing that you put down in the barrel, and basically you replace your barrel and everything like that, and it will actually do blowback. I want that one. It'll be better pistol training for me, honestly. But the Mantis Blackbeard rifle one, it's for sure the shit, dude.
Yeah, the rifle one's pretty cool because it's got a replacement bolt essentially that resets your trigger, so you don't have to rack your bolt every time. So I think you can get like something like 70,000 trigger pulls out of the battery or something. It's something stupid ridiculous.
Yeah, and it shoots little green laser and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. For those that are listening, like go look up Mantis X. I think it is one of the things that's actually worth the money to do, and I'm a cheapskate, so like I would totally throw money at it.
Yeah, and you want to like help this channel? You want to help us or anything like that? And you're like, yeah, I don't want to handouts. Don't send us money or anything like that. Don't send us money. Send us this shit.
Yeah, 100%. We are planning on eventually doing video. It's something like I mentioned before earlier that it is something we do want to do, and I will gladly show that stuff off. Like 100%. And that across the board too. Like, if anybody has anything or like wants to support in any way, just reach out and let us know. I think there is a way on Spotify, if you swipe to the right of the podcast after you're on there, that there should be a link to where you can do so. I've had a couple people ask, so I had to play with that to figure out how that worked. But
we'll start a GoFundMe. So if all of you donate, right, $1, right, it'll at least give us a pretty good discount. So we can go buy them and tell you if it's worth it or not.
Exactly. You know what? If you want, we could do that with just about everything.
So yeah, and it's not even like one person send us like a fucking, like an FAL or something like that. Like, is this worth it? Like, but if everyone donated $1,
I'm not gonna lie. If somebody sends me an FAL, they're not getting it back.
It will never come back.
I'll change my address, fake my death. You're just not getting it back.
That was the first thing that popped in my head because I knew you would love it.
Oh, you chose correctly.
I'll never understand your obsession with these guns, dude. I mean, they're cool.
It's just my thing is like, so my thing is across the board, I will get super autistic about some type of historical period for some reason. And then I will learn everything I can possibly consume about it. And sometimes it's not even like a time period, it's like a very specific thing. Like, for example, like it'll be specifically the Selu scouts in Rhodesia from this time period to this time period, and maybe even focus around a specific battle. And then I'll be like, learn everything I can about them, and be like, dude, the drip is on point. I need this. I need the camo. I need the kit. I need the guns. Is it practical? No. But somewhere deep in my brain
I
is
need it.
like, exactly. I mean, like, prime example, I own a Lee Enfield rifle. Okay. I have a number 4 Mark 1. It is a stripper clip fed 10 round box magazine, 303 British. If I have to leave my house tomorrow and I can only take one gun, that's not the one I'm grabbing, right?
Yeah.
But the autistic part of my brain
It will pay off.
has stripper clips, bandoliers, and ammo ready to where if I have to form my like end of the world battalion, someone is going to be fighting that battle with a 303. I've got a bayonet for it. When am I going to stab someone in the face with a bayonet? Probably never. But whenever we've built our apocalypse wall on the highway of cars, with cars to block out the marauders, and you get your epic screenshot of like all the guys lined up ready to shoot the bad guys. We've got an assortment of weapons. One of them will be using a 303 with the bandoliers that I spent, money on to find, with the chargers that I spent money on to find, and the bayonet, because we're going to be ready. I mean, if we were to talk about like autistic obsessions, right? Like, I built out that rolling block, right? That I told you about. For those listening, I have a 7mm 1902 rolling block. Okay. I got it for free from a guy whose grandpa passed and he didn't want to fix it up. It was basically missing the hammer and the breech face and a few screws. I wound up finding the parts, put like $300 of parts into this, got it up and running. It is a single shot rifle, right? It is a falling block. It is in 7mm Mauser. Two things that go against me there. One being 7mm Mauser, trying to find some, and two, that it is a single shot rifle. The autistic part of my brain says that when I have to circle the wagons, I will be able to fight off the Indians. Someone somewhere in the not so distant future is going to be fighting the next civil war with my 7mm Mauser.
Jesus Christ, bro.
That's the way my brain works. Is I'm like, the odds of someone running this in the modern day are slim, but never zero.
It's never 100%. Right?
And it's never zero. It's never zero.
The odds of you getting shot, all right, by this 80-year-old gun to 100-year-old gun.
I do have to say, it does add some insult to injury if you are the guy that gets clapped by a dude with a 7mm rolling block. Like, if you become a loot drop for that guy, like, that's some Tarkov level tomfoolery.
Tarkov level. I'm just like saying, like, you're the likelihood of you getting shot by a Kar 98 today is not.
It's not. It's not zero. Like, it's never zero.
Jesus.
As much weird stuff as we saw in Ukraine in the beginning, when they were like, we just put 2 Maxim machine guns together and mounted an EOTech on the top. I'm like, screw it, dude. We're going full Mad Max. Let's go. Like, I will say, that is like the one thing for me is like that autistic part of my brain that's like, but it could be like potentially viable. Just got spurred on even further by Ukraine when I'm seeing dudes using Mosins, and I'm just like, yes.
The little part of my brain has been itched. Some FUD somewhere is like, yeah, I told you.
I'm just waiting for like if like the U.S. equivalent when we just start handing out like Springfield 03s that we've had for honor guards forever. We're like, we're out of M16s. Just take them. Get some OT6 from your grandpa. It'll work.
Some 20-year-old from China gets clapped.
I mean, just imagine the one guy who's got like the still commissioned like Winchester shotgun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just fixing his bayonet, Yankee Doodle dandying his way over the front line to collapse some Chinese dude in World War III with his paper shotgun shells.
My war crime stick.
Hey, it's not a war crime the first time.
I love it, dude. Well, I mean, not to cut this one off too early, but it is a little late.
Absolutely.
This episode was kind of thrown together, guys, just because we have a lot of life stuff going on right now.
Par for the course.
Yeah,
For the course.
Honestly, I don't even know why I explained my fucking self.
Honestly,
Every episode is gonna be like this.
I feel like that's just not a disclaimer anymore, and it's just more like that's the unique flavor.
Yeah,
You know
they're
what I
just
mean?
like they're just like, yeah, wasn't this like every other episode?
I feel like if I came out and I was like, "Hey, we actually put a lot of thought and time and effort into this episode, guys. We really wanted to make a good one for you. We're putting out a solid quality environment for you."
Immediately
To
shut up.
they'd be like, dude, they sold out. They're feds. Back off.
I knew they were feds.
I start getting like text messages saying glowy. You know? Because everyone's immediately like, fed.
Dude, that's what when we actually plan this out, we can actually do it like 100% planned in a studio with like all the gear, all the stuff, all the testing equipment. That's when I'll know that we're moving on from like this fucking ragtag like little talk show we have into an actual podcast.
I'm waiting for the point that I post something that's like not controversial at all, and I just have someone come on there and just tell me about like when they were in special forces, the reason why it was different, and they'll have no verification to prove it. That's how I know that we made it.
Dude, I mean, right before we get off, have you seen all the huge controversy bullshit going on right now? I'm so glad the sheeple have finally woken up, but they're like, if you were in the military, you're actually worse than us civilians coming out here. And
yeah,
I'm so glad the gun culture is changing, because coming from someone that was in the military and like that, just because someone says they're in the military doesn't really mean any bullshit. Doesn't mean that they're great shooters. Doesn't mean anything. And that goes on all the way over to like the special forces side and everything like that. People say, "Oh, special
100%."
No, they were just more trained than the average person.
Yeah, they went to the range 12 times instead of 2.
So it's like this new generation of gun culture is coming out saying like, oh yeah, like if you're military, you're garbage. Like if you're not a Lucas Boggins, you just go shooting competition, things like that, you're garbage, kid. And it's just so funny how the world changes like this. Now they're using like veterans, like a lot of special forces stuff, as like storytelling, like, oh, tell us about when you were overseas. And as soon as they get into like actual educational, like this is how you need to shoot or anything like that, people are like, nah, turn it off. He has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Well, I mean, like I made this point the other day with my buddy where we were out on the range doing some stuff at a Navy range, and I was like, okay, my thing is, for example, you have some very squared away sailors in the Navy who know what they're doing in regards to the way that the Navy want things done, the way that the Navy taught you to shoot, the way that the Navy tells you is safe. So, for example, some of our shooting moving portions of our pistol qualification. There's the Navy way, but then there's also like reality, and anyone who's actually shot and moved or done anything like that in any type of capacity, whether it be competition or just basic level training on your own type of stuff. Like if you try to apply any of that that makes sense, is safe, and is tactically sound, but it is within a centimeter outside of the colored lines that you need to follow, you are immediately shut down. Because it's not that it's not safe, because it still is. It's that it's not what they were taught. So it's wrong and it's different. And we're not going to do that here.
Yeah.
So it's like anything you see, they're like, oh, that's unsafe. You're like, no, it's entirely safe. And we do this, blah, 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 blah. And you give a good reasoning. Well, it's not safe because they don't know it.
Yeah. For the most part, when we talk about our military past, don't get me wrong, there's things that I would never be able to do in the civilian sector, like go full auto with 50 cals, things like that, 240, shit like that. Most of the time in the civilian construct, like everything, living as a civilian in the United States, you're not going to get that opportunity to like really learn how to lay down suppressive fire, things like that. So I'm grateful for that training. But even when I was out on the range hating it, and for a little note for you guys. Most people that were in the military aren't going, like, if you come up to them on the range and you're like, "Were you in the military?" I'm gonna tell you no, because I really don't care to tell you my whole background, tell you my whole story, all that bullshit. So every time
Yeah.
I'm out at the range here and I'm doing some match practices, mostly drills I learned from shooting competitions at the range and shit like that, or watching people like Lucas Botkins or a lot of other influencers like that. The first thing they come up to me and ask was like, "Were you a Marine? Like, were you any sort of like special forces or anything like that?" I'm like, no, like any form of training that you do,
No, I'm just retired.
yeah, I'm just autistic. Like, the better training you get in the civilian sector is insane. You get crazy good.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is like, and I don't want to be sitting here like I'm dogging super hard, but it's like anyone with any amount of like actual knowledge of an actual like self-awareness will acknowledge that for a majority of the military, granted there are people who get, like you said, they get trained more because there's more funding, there's more time for them to get trained. But even in the like your average infantryman across the board, your average military member shoots twice a year at a qualification course most of us would scoff at, and they have no outside bearing to compare that to. So there is a certain level of unearned confidence when comparing to the civilian side that a lot of people, that's where I think a lot of this idea of like, well, I'm a veteran and I support gun control, blah blah blah, crap comes from, is because they just assume that because they were trained by the government and you weren't, that you must not know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and that
And,
you have to have been military to know.
yeah, I was actually just watching this podcast not so long ago. I forgot if it was like Joe Rogan. I don't think it was. It was one of these like all special forces bullshit podcasts. I was watching a little clip of it, um, where he was like, he was talking. He's just like, yeah, when I first joined the SEALs, I thought, who was the best shooters in the world? SEALs, right? He's like, wrong, absolutely not. SEALs learn from civilians. SEALs get trained by civilians. SEALs don't train SEALs to shoot.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, is it's like you join the military, you go through this really hard like training process, right? It doesn't mean you have an innate gift of shooting. You still have to learn how to do that,
Yeah.
right?
And they're
You know,
learned by private contractors and private businesses like Lucas Botkins. He
yeah,
trains SEAL teams. He trains special operations teams.
yeah, and that's one thing. Like I know I talk a lot of crap about them, and I talk a lot of crap about everybody,
Yeah.
regardless of who they are. But that's the thing, is it's like I think he is a good example of like not having to have been a trained or certain, or different types of military units or anything like that, to have a good grasp of the reality of the situation and how to train, what to look for, and things to do. Are there certain things you're going to learn from the military, or for those who did see combat, that are life lessons that aren't going to be learned in the civilian world? Absolutely. But at the same time, that doesn't just mean that everything that's on the civilian side doesn't make any sense. Because the other thing too is the military is very strong on manuals and very strong on outdated training, and having to learn from the last war too late to put the information into this war. The military, at least my experience, even like some of the more combat related units in the Navy, we still train off outdated manuals. We basically go, look, we got to tick a box, we got to check the box. Don't actually do this. This is what you're going to actually do, but for training purposes, this is what you need to say, or this is what you have to do. And the manuals are outdated. Um, there's stuff in there that doesn't make sense anymore. There's stuff in there that is just retarded to do now. But it is what it is. I mean, for the Navy, it took us forever to go from shooting, to decide that between Weaver and isosceles stance, because there was a huge debate for the longest time. Like, oh, do you turn your body towards them? Well, if you got body armor on, you're just giving them your sides, but it's a smaller target. And it was like this back and forth for years,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, can we just fricking pick one, or just say, hey, in the heat of the moment, just shoot the other guy? How about that?
Yeah. Shoot how you want to shoot.
Yeah, but no, like everything is procedural and all this stuff, right? So you get more flexibility in the military. I mean, on the civilian side, and you can take some of the lessons learned from the military side, and that's why, again, too, like I harp on this all the time. If you are in the military or you were in the military, do not be an elitist about that. Share that knowledge as much as possible
Yeah.
and be open to people who were not in the military teaching you something. Prime example, I have a buddy here. I don't know if he'd be comfortable with me sharing his info, so I'm not going to, but I have a buddy of mine who to my knowledge was not in the military. I could be wrong on that, but does land navigation courses and is one of the best land navigation courses guys that, like, as far at least from the documentation and things that I've heard and that I'm aware of, and never once been in the military,
Yeah.
but you could teach the crap out of some land nav. And
Yeah.
I was in the military, and based on what I had to do, that was never land nav was never a huge part of it. I dabbled in it, but was never like a huge part of my training. And
Mhm.
he goes way more into depth than anything I ever got, and at a level to where I'm totally able to understand. Um,
Dude,
and it's what.
you know who goes hard in land nav? I'm sorry to interrupt you on that.
No, go ahead, man. Go
It's
ahead.
like any forest ranger, any sort of person in the forestry capacity, anything like that, dude, they go hard. They know land nav. They know
Oh
what they're
yeah,
doing.
yeah. That's a good point. That's a fair point with that too. So like that's just my biggest thing. I know we've talked about that before. It's just I think it's something that I just keep seeing pop back up, and I think I'm with you that I am glad to see that it is changing and people are calling other people out about it because it is changing and it is becoming a thing to where people are like, yeah, nope, don't care, never mind, keep your stuff to yourself. I'm gonna go do this,
Yeah, you have
and I
those
think
stories, but that it doesn't mean I have to run my life that way.
exactly, and I think a big part of that is people are like you said, they're waking up and they're realizing we're not in the GWOT anymore. My needs are different than yours. Your needs and your high speed stuff, your secret missions, your whatever you're doing. When you had all of these assets on standby, IR drones, all this stuff, you were never more than 3 days away from resupply. That's fantastic. My needs are, if things go south, I don't have billions of dollars to support me and I have no assets. So, like, even something as simple as a gear loadout is going to be entirely different than what you're bringing to the fight here.
Yeah.
And for you to sit there and say, well, as a civilian, I don't know exactly what you need that or like why this would be important to you. It's like, I don't know, dude. Like, the same reason that it would be important to you as a military dude or police officer or anything else. Like, you never know what's going to happen, man.
Yeah.
Like, why? Who made you the gatekeeper of knowledge? Like, why does that one thing negate me from needing to know it? I may never get to use. There's a lot of crap I know that I'll probably never use. No
Yeah.
one's ever probably going to ask me, unless I'm on Jeopardy, some of the crap that I know about like 1700s warfare, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I shouldn't know it.
All I'm saying is during every single war, during every single altercation that countries have and nations have, let's not even say our government attacks us. I know that's what every prepper preps for, is our government coming after us. But let's just say a World War III pops off and it's like typical World War. Everyone's getting sent to the field. Everyone's getting sent out there to fight. Who were the fighters? They were teachers. They were plumbers. They were electricians. They were your average guy.
Yeah, I mean, Saving Private Ryan is a great example of that, right? When they're all trying to guess what Tom Hanks did, and it comes to find out he was a high school teacher and a basketball coach.
Yeah.
Like, everyone had a day job before they joined the military, and everyone has a day job when they leave, right? You don't get to be a Green Beret forever. At some point you have to get a different job. You don't get to be a Navy SEAL forever. You have to go get a different job, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing applies. So, I mean, like, I think it's a huge thing. I think the concept of citizen soldier, not in the idea of the National Guard, but in the idea that you as a daily civilian can bring the life set of skills that you have for your civilian career, and also the capability to work in a small team, sustain yourself, and operate at a level of being of sufficiency and being able to, defend yourself. You get the best of both worlds, because the best part about it, like I said, is like you have skills from the outside that you have. I mean, like, when I left the military, my skills for the civilian world allowed me to be a cop or a security guard, of which I wanted to be neither. So it was like, crap, I didn't have a really good job skill. But it's like, and everything I learned, I could teach you, right? And everything I learned, you could learn from somebody else through like tactical training courses, right? So it's not like I have this hidden barrier of knowledge.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who was like a framer or a construction guy or an electrician or a doctor or something, I mean I'm just naming off things here, but I'm thinking like something that has a subset of skills, or in the civilian world you have to get multiple licenses to, like
Yeah.
that's a good skill to have, because now like I can teach anyone how to run a gun and pull security.
Yeah, anyone can stand security, but then again, anyone can learn another skill. Anyone can learn to run, like
Right.
frame, everything like that. But when you are this framer, you are this, well, let's say like we'll just stay with the framer, right? He's gonna have a certain set of skills if he also learned to shoot, run and gun, do all that stuff, lead with a team, run some comms, and know how to build fantastic barriers or include housing, certain kind of structural things that he can bring to the table that no one else would have.
Exactly. He has more skill. Like if you think like the whole idea of like, okay, if I have limited resources, like kind of like those video games where it's like you got to build a village or whatever, right? Like, okay, you have limited resources and you have X amount of people you can allow in. You want the best people possible. So that means you don't want necessarily just the guy who can do, scary, dark stuff in the woods. You want the guy that also knows how to patch you back up, build a house, fix a car, skills that you need in life that you don't have access to, as well as running a gun. Because like I said, you can put anyone through a training program and teach them how to run a gun. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to teach someone with no knowledge how an HVAC system works and get them certified to a certain level of proficiency.
Or how to start a crop.
Yeah, I mean, farming in and of its own, like there's so many different things about what crops to grow, when, where, and how often,
Yeah.
that if you don't have someone experienced, you're just taking your life in your hands and hoping the food pops up at the right time.
Yeah. All right, man. I was supposed to get off here a little bit ago, but we talked about what we did. Awesome, man. I'll talk to you next time.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Again, this has been Mid-Tier Thoughts. Again, big special thanks to everyone listening, especially our international audience. I'm going to throw that guy's information in the description of here that I was talking about earlier, the guy from Germany. Please reach out, wish him well, wish him well. Hopefully that he gets good to go on his surgery, whatever it is, and he recovers quickly. And you guys are able to throw some good resources at him. All right.
Later, man.
See ya. Bye.